welcome. I'm Frederick Schmidt, your host. I'm here with Intellectual Radio. Today we're going over our podcast today is going to be centralized around veterans employment and day labor services and the various questions. We're going to go around the room and introduce ourselves and let these gentlemen introduce themselves and how and what we do and how it is that we're able to help one another. So we're going to jump in. Again, I'm Frederick Schmidt. I'm the host. I'm here with Intellectual Radio. We're going to be able to go over this to answer questions, to really be able to get our voice out there so that people can understand the struggles that the veterans are having and how or what we possibly can do to make sure that this is in the forefront to be able to really assist persons. So we're going to start with yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your organization, how or what we can do to come together. And then just come a little bit closer to the mic there. And then, we'll go ahead and get started here. So go ahead.
Good. I'm Stephen Catus. I'm with the Veteran Case Management Services, LLC. And I'm also a disabled veteran.
Okay. Well, thank you.
My name is Mason. I'm with Veteran Case Manager, and I'm the guy that put the word out about Veteran Case Manager. Everything we need to do about veterans, that's what we're trying to do to help veterans here get on their feet, get them jobs, get them apartments, get them anything they need that we can do. If we don't have the resource, we will get them to it.
Okay. And again, I'm Frederick Schmidt. My website, if anybody has questions, Homer, we'll pass out the websites as well, and we'll announce that also. So if anybody does have questions, I get involved in being able to help veterans when it comes to insurance and rounding out their benefits. So first of all, thank you, gentlemen, for your time and your service. It's also important to recognize it's the people that are home, the families that are also supporting the veterans to make sure that everything rounds out. So if you do need to get a hold of me, because we work with the veterans, we're looking at being able to help with the food benefits, a lot of other benefits to be able to round out in addition, as we've talked with that as well. My website is in www.insuremenow.store. We're here to be able to see how can we be of service to you since you've been of service to us in our country.
I'm Ken Lee. I'm a board member with AmeriCares 2, a non-for-profit, and I'm also a disabled veteran.
Great. And Homer, and your website and a little bit more as we brought this together for everybody.
Yes. My name is Homer Bilza. I'm the founder and president of both organizations, Veteran Case Management Services, LLC, and the president of AmeriCares 2 and founder of AmeriCares 2. The website you could go to for the nonprofit for AmeriCares 2 is americacares2.ning.com. And for Veteran Case Management Services, you could go to the Veteran Case Management Services.
www.veterancaseservices.com.
Yes. And if you have any, if you need any assistance or resource and knowledges, we specialize in claims, help veterans find resources. We advocate for veterans, disabled veterans for job services, and also try to work with employers to build a better, friendly veteran community for the workforce, so they can actually have employ veterans on for the employment, and also as well to also educate them on about the veterans tax credit.
Great. So we're going to jump in. We got quite a bit of questions here. We want everybody's knowledge. Whoever's going to jump in and answer the question, however you want to, we'll do that. We'll give each other the time to be able to answer. If there's feedback from somebody else that we feel is going to be helpful, that's great, because again, what ends up happening is if we don't get the word out there and we don't try to help people, a lot of people don't realize how much resources there is, plethora of resources in information, and it can be overwhelming, but we want to try to simplify it to help with the housing and the needs. We have too many veterans that are going through too much, and they're not getting the help that they need or not knowing where to be able to. So, our hopes in this podcast is to reach out to the veterans, by veterans, with veterans, to help veterans, and however or whatever we need to do. Again, I'm not saying we all have the answers, but if we can work together to be able to help one another, that's the key. So I'm going to jump in here, starting with the questions. So I'll start with yourself, Homer, or whoever wants to direct this. It says, why are disabled veterans having trouble keeping a job?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. Starters is lack of knowledge of the veteran's condition. One, for example, I could speak from my experience coming off active duty, and then with my injuries as a service disabled veteran, you embarrassed to explain to your employer that, hey, I'm suffering from PTSD or any anxiety from active service. So for the employer looking at, hey, I need manpower. They not trying to, how I put it, they try to meet their mission. But as a veteran, you stuck between a rock and a hard place. You want to educate the employer and say, hey, look, I'm suffering from XYZ because of my service. And also, two veterans fail to realize that, hey, once you become a service disabled veteran, you fall under the ADA guidelines. That means Americans with Disability Act. So you can ask for reasonable accommodations. But sometimes it could be retaliated. You and I both know.
Right.
If you say, hey, I need time off work to deal with this mental illness I'm experiencing from active duty, that's the price you pay for serving your country. But on the civilian side, they don't care. They want to say, hey, I hire you to do this job. You need to do X, Y, and Z, or you out the door. Now, here you go. You got anxiety. Now you got suicidal thoughts coming in, a whole lot of things going through your head. So that's unfair. And I think our politicians is doing a horrible job because, one, they're not addressing the crisis that's going on. Don't you know, I'm gonna put it out here to the group. I'm on the suicide prevention committee. How many people know that a veteran commits suicide? I think 22 seconds every veteran commits suicide that could be avoided. And the bad part about it, let's take it a step further. We have children today is committing more. It's a high suicide rate because of social media. So back to what I'm saying with the veterans, we have to address these issues at hand, but we can't just say, hey, go to these groups and then just hold a meeting. We have to put boots on the ground and get people out there doing the work and address these veterans' needs. And far as the employment wise, we got to educate the employers and say, hey, if you hire this veteran, and this veteran, and the veteran has the responsibilities too to say, hey, look, I'm suffering from X, Y, and Z. I need reasonable accommodations for this, or they can find another alternative and say, hey, if it's more like computer stuff that you do on the computer, hey, you can work from home, and then from there, that way it won't cause you no issues, but at least I know you can get your work done. I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, it's knowing their limitations.
Exactly.
Making it confidential, knowing their limitations, and being able to give the opportunity. It's just because somebody has a disability or whatever we want to call it, we want to be able to know how or what do we do, because we want to put somebody in a position of power to be able to better themselves. If you're putting somebody in a position and you're just running a machine, and unfortunately we see that a lot here, you're doing more damage than you are doing good. So awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So it says here, oh, yes, go ahead.
I would like to add to that.
Sure, please.
I would say also it's not just that, but it's also the type of work that the veteran is scared of divulging to the employer.
Right.
Such as, let's say, they don't be limited by like their PTSD, their depression, or whatever kind of symptoms they may have. Like, let's say they're a truck driver or an airplane mechanic or something similar to that. Because now they're going to probably be looking at that employer, and that employer looking at them saying, well, due to this, we may take and give you less hours or limit you on, what we're going to take and give you for work, because now they're looking at that person, that employee a little differently.
Right.
And they may not, they may not feel like they're doing that, but that, that veteran is going to feel that kind of way about it. So it's the reason they don't want to take and divulge their disability to that employer. So that's one avenue of like why veterans don't want to reveal their disabilities to their employers.
Right.
And then even when they do reveal that to the employer and accommodations do happen, if something does happen down the line, as Homer pointed out, what recourse do they have? Like, who do they talk to? I mean, when it comes to the military side of it all, we have USERA. Where's that same program when it comes to the veterans? We don't have that same outlet where we have someone we can go to and, talk to these employers for us who's going to advocate.
And to add to that, as you were saying, because of its part, wouldn't that fall back into the American Disabilities Act if they were discriminated? But as you were saying, also, is you're right, it could be demoralizing sometimes to have to divulge what's going on, but you don't want somebody to take pity on you either. And that's where that fine line is. And I'm wondering how or where, and if any of you can answer this, how that falls back, like you were saying with Sarah, because of being in the military, how does it fall back with the ADA to be able to step up and say, hey, look, you can't treat this person any different. You can't divulge what they have. You can't divulge what's going on, but you also can't discriminate against them. So how do they, I guess the question is, how do we then train the employer to be able to know how to be able to work with veterans that are disabled, just like anybody else that might be disabled?
Yeah, it sounds like that's what we most definitely have to do. We have to train either side, because it seems like if I'm a vet and I walk in there and says, hey, XYZ, that's what I have, they can just look down and say, hey, you're no good, or you know what I mean? You get the boot. So it seems like we have to educate the companies and ourselves, so to speak. So it's on both sides that we need some kind of fraction right there to put those two together. Otherwise, it's a nonstop. It seems like it's just going to keep running, and it will. Yeah. In the way that it's going, it will. I mean, education is the key. It is
key to everything.
Yes, it is.
And I can explain to you from my experience. I educated my employer. I was a state employee with the state of Illinois, but I'm not going to name the agency. But I was discriminated against by my employer. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, 4 times. Twice in uniform and twice as a disabled veteran. Follow the guidelines. Hey, I educate my employer. It seemed like, hey, disregard all my years of service, and I had good performance reviews. I raised an issue about a promotion. It was a manager recommended me for a promotion, but again, the politic game, the state of Illinois. The lady had her friend bumped over. I don't know how, but was not qualified. Here I am holding a master's degree, all this background, didn't mean jack. But at the end of the day, I had to fight for my rights in court. But I ended up getting a settlement. But that's, to me, my employer was very educated because I educate the employer. But at the end of the day, look where I am tonight. So now that's why I open up my own company to advocate veterans and go in and fight for them, and also take it to the lawmakers. So when you saying, hey, we need more troops to serve, but here's the problem. What you got for them when they come out? They got to fight for service-connected disability. I deal with claims. You've been in my office. All the stories I hear. Then veterans getting fired from work. Some of them have family issues, mental health issues. Oh, don't worry, it ain't my problem. Let the government handle it. The problem is we have to hold our political officials, representatives accountable. Because if you send somebody child to war, you want to make sure they come back with the resources. Yep. And that's the most important. And they say, oh, we got a low number of people who are listening. You're going to tell this generation is more educated. They learned from Iraq, Afghanistan. Hell, they see their grandparents from Vietnam, how they being treated. And that's the thing. If we don't, if these elected officials don't step up and say, hey, look, let's get these veterans the resources they need, when everybody coming together. That's why we got veteran organizations, group like the Legion, VFW, whatever. We all supposed to work together. It's one team, one fight. And I believe right now we're doing a poor job.
Yeah, it's ignorance because it's a lack of knowledge.
Yes. Yes.
And so, I agree with you. All these officials ain't doing what they're supposed to do. It seems like they get in there and they act like they don't know what they are doing and stuff. And that's bad. And then when you go to them, they don't want to help you. They say we don't have the funds, and you want to see them for a meeting and stuff. They give you run around. They don't email you back or nothing like that. It seems like they'll just be getting a paycheck, and they only help the people they want to help.
That's true.
Yeah, and the more we help each other, we got to work as a team.
We have to.
Just because somebody has that labeled disability, you may not see that disability, but you don't know how deep that. Sure, you might see somebody missing a limb, or you might see somebody, but you don't know what they mentally had gone through
Yeah.
when they're there or what they're dealing with at home. So it's an extra step of understanding, how do we work this? That's what's key. That's key. That's great. Okay. And does anybody else, before we move on to the next question, does anybody else have any other feedback that they would like to add
the way
to
I
this?
feel, when you come together, you be strong. And that's what these people need to do. These politicians sit here when it's time for election. They want to tell you, look at my record. I did this and that. But when it ain't your turn for your record and stuff, where's you at when we need you? You ain't there. We can't even talk to you. Every time you look around, you at Washington, you somewhere else and stuff, shaking hands, so they're taking care of business.
And let me take it a step further. If you go to the page, Will, Kane, and all them, they hold town hall meetings.
Yep.
So they constituents is well informed. And plus the constituents is very knowledgeable to say, hey, look, I'm not seeing X, Y, and Z in my community being addressed. If you don't do X, Y, and Z, you can get voted out. Cook County is a political machine. So if you look at it, who's the 7th district representative?
Danny Davis.
Then
Okay, so out of this big seven district, it's a big district.
Yeah.
You telling me it's not if you look on the west side, it's a lot of unemployment rate. Not talking about veterans, but people in general. And from there, it's a lot of grant dollars in this district that could be put to use and put people back to work. But once again, when you dealing with the old political machine, and then people keep these same people in and say, oh, they doing X, Y, and Z, that means one, you miseducated, and two, you must don't care about your community because one, your community is suffering. So if you feel that person is doing a good job, I think you need to look at yourself.
Yeah, because these politicians, if you go on the west side, they ain't building nothing up over there. They ain't trying to do nothing over there. They just let it stay like it is. And all that money they have, they can put it to use over there and put them people to work.
Yeah, instead of asking to raise taxes, instead of saying, okay, we're going to take another pool of taxes. Instead of distributing what they have to be able to help and pool all the resources together. It's real disturbing.
They can build, but they just don't want to. The peoples on the west side in the 7th district, all they have to do is stand up and go against them. If once they stand up and go against them and they heard, he can't do nothing but come out and rebuild the west side and put these peoples to work. That's all they need to do. Yeah. If they come out and stand up, they can't beat you. They can't beat you at all.
Yep. As you were saying, boots on the ground. The problem a lot of times is people give the responsibility over to the officials thinking they're going to do everything. The only thing they're going to do is pocket the money. They're not going to help unless you're kind of in their face. You have skin in the game. Sure, you've served in your home and you're working as a team, but we got to come together. We got to do more than just thinking they're going to do the work.
I think the problem is some of the people in the community afraid of retaliation and repercussions behind standing up, and I think that's how I believe, because if you look at Oak Park, River Forest, you don't see that in Oak Park is right next to Austin, so the moment you cross there, it's quiet as day.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and you see it much better than the west side. It's wide open, clean.
Yep.
And everything. You don't see people walking the streets or standing on the corner.
Yep. And if you look at the 60s, you look at the 70s, people stood up. You're right. There is going to be retaliation. Yeah, it is going to be ugly.
Yeah, but they came in numbers, though.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was numbers that they came in, and they all stand there. They didn't leave. They didn't care what they say. The police didn't have to jump on them. We came here, did a peaceful march and a peaceful protest to get what we want. And we're not going to leave until we get what we want. And we're going to stay here. We're going to make sure y'all do what we need for them to do.
Yep, and that's exactly what it needs to. We need to get back to that approach, I feel. I think what's happened is too many people are scared of the politics and of the government and of the cops. And you're right, there are reasons to be, of course, and it's not to say that all of them are that way. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is we have to come together.
But what is it to be scared of? What can they do to you?
Right.
If you out there protesting the march, what can they do to you?
Yep, exactly.
You being heard. And as long as you're being heard, they got to do what they need to do to help you.
Yep.
Because they don't, everybody going to see what they're doing.
Yep, and that's what we want them to see. We want to be able to shine the light on the ignorance and, the inability to not do their job.
All you do is call these peoples out and see what they're going to do.
Yep.
You call them out and they don't do nothing. When it's time to vote, we can see, like they're saying, we're going to get you when election time comes.
Yep, that's exactly what it is. That's awesome. All right. So on this one, it says, are their disability status impacting labor market participation?
Yes,
Okay.
because it goes back to what we said in the first question. If you look at it, if a veteran comes back, just think of it, you went off the war, went to service active duty. You come back and people don't understand. Let me educate you out there. The PTSD begins in basic training. People don't know that. Think of Full Metal Jacket. Whoever saw Full Metal Jacket?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So you remember that part where the man shot himself in the bathroom in the latrine?
Yes.
So that's a form of PTSD right there, because now you taking this civilian, turning them into a machine, and now everyone's like training them to be a dog. I'm sorry to use that terminology.
They call it auto private.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. Thank you so much, Battle. But and then from there, when that veteran gets discharged out of active duty, then that veteran comes into the civilian, back in the civilian world, they are not mentally adjusted back in, because they used to having the orders telling them where they go, where they eat, sleep, whatever. But now they have to defend for themselves. Now, if you're a veteran like me, that I would say not brainwashed, but come back and it's like, okay, I got to adjust back to civilian life. I got to prep myself because now I'm on my own. That's the, and then right there, you already got a veteran already have mental issues because he psychologically, he's still or she's still thinking they ain't training. And then some of them might have been probably sexually assaulted on active duty too. Mm-hmm. They coming that back because they feeling ashamed to get help. And that's another issue right there. So now put them in a workplace, say a guy touched them the wrong way, say, hey, how you doing? Oh my God, you I'm feeling being raped or harassed. Because now something had happened to them on active duty.
Yep.
Psychologically, that's an example. So yeah, it's a challenge for employers. So I'm not saying employers is not trying to help the veteran, but they looking at the liability risk.
Right. Mm-hmm. And you think about it, when most go into the military, they're children.
Exactly.
They're scared. They're children.
Exactly.
And when they're there, my nephew just recently graduated from Marines. He's still dealing with that. And he had said, you know, surprisingly, how many times in the barracks at night you would hear men crying, you know, because of the fact that they're trying to break them. They're trying to break. They're not trying to break a child into becoming an adult. They're trying to break a child to become a machine. And then when that machine comes home, you know, they didn't have that adjustment to go from a child to an adult. They went from a child to a machine. And now they're trying to adjust and trying to reconnect. And it's like, it's scary. And now with the technology and the weaponry and the military being what it is and the confusion, it's scary.
Yes,
But see, when they go in there, they're not used to being away from home.
That's
the whole problem. And they're young. They used to their parents telling them what to do. They can do what they want to do. Now, you come in there the first time, somebody telling you what to do, you looking at them, who in the hell is this?
Yeah. And it's not just telling you what to do. It's how they tell you to do it.
And they holler at you and talk to you any kind of way like you ain't got no sense or you ain't nobody special. Man, Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's either going to break you, you know, or
they try to break you. They'll break some of them, and some of them they don't break. That's why the ones they can't break, they send them back home.
Yep, exactly.
Well, not just that. Also, when it comes to veterans, when it comes to these employers don't understand that these veterans are also dealing with a lot of mental issues besides that, such as, you know, PTSD, depression, anxiety, all these like unspecified mental issues that either one they're dealing with separately by themselves, with either alcoholism, drugs, VA approved drugs, or counseling. And if it's a toxic work environment, it's even worse, because now you're dealing with a toxic work environment. You're dealing with the issues of work, your own mental issues, combat issues, and it's just a soup of all these things. And then you have issues such as suicidal thoughts on top of that.
Yep.
So it's just a bad like environment to be in as a veteran.
And it's also, as a society, we're taught, especially as men, oh, you don't get in touch with your emotions. You don't get in touch with, if you have a problem, you kind of deal with it. And that's where you got to break through that barrier to say, if you were raped, it doesn't matter if you're a woman. It doesn't matter if you have mental issues. You've got to be able to know how to process this. Because what's happening is too many of them, it's coming out at the wrong time in the worst possible way. And that's where the problem is, to understand what do we do with people that are having these issues, to be able to make sure it's not only the employer, but it's to really for people to be human again, instead of just being caught up in the machines. And you're right, being in the military, I see that all the time, where something could trigger somebody and we don't know why. It could be because of sexual abuse, it could be alcohol, it could be drugs, it could be family related. But when people are in the military, that's a whole nother level
Yeah.
that's added to them.
They see a lot of things. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I would say being in the Army and at war, you're trained and you're taught that you'll deal with, your feelings, your emotions another time, because now's not the time.
Yeah.
Right.
And that time never comes because you're in combat.
Right.
And then when you're home and, you feel like you're safe, then that time finally comes at some point. And then all that you've been holding in finally comes out at that one time. All that you've been pushing back, all that you've been thinking about comes to the forefront. And that's when you finally break down.
Do you think that then the Army need to have like a holding tank, like when you're out, like when you finish your duties and you get your years in and it's time for you to get out? No,
Like a decompression.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking we need something like that.
I've been saying that before. They should go through like the same way you went through basic training for 12 weeks.
Yeah.
You should have like a 12 weeks of decompress, so that way they educate you on the resources that's available to you too. So that way when you get ready to get discharged off of active duty, you already know you got the resources, how to access them, X, Y, and Z.
I would say the Army, for out processing, they have something similar.
Yeah.
With I think it's called the Yellow Ribbon Program, but it's not enough.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, they're trying, but it's really not enough. They try to give you the resources and all that.
Well, it's got to be a length of time that you've been there too.
Yeah.
Say for first entry, when you come in, what you have to do a basics for like 3-4 months. You should have a 3 or 4 months then. Period.
And it shouldn't be a one size fit all either.
Yeah.
It should be where, there, with technology being what it is, there should be able to connect with that.
Yeah.
To find out where somebody is, because here you are again, you're taking a child, they're not away from home, they're thrown in, now they're a machine. Now they're home, now they're thrown into the real world. They haven't been able to trust or to process that changes.
Right.
Which is really making a lot of issues.
And I think that's what the government was, those groups, these veteran organization groups, supposed to do, to have what you call it, cohesiveness, comradeship amongst each other. But when you go to these organizations, where you see bars, gambling machines, it's like, holy, are you promoting addiction or are you helping me? Which one? So that's the problem I'm having with these organizations. While I look at when a veteran comes and join an organization, they should be there. One's a brotherhood. Two, let's talk about issues. So for one meeting, let's talk about suicidal. What thoughts you have? Hey, I have thoughts of just slashing my wrist, whatever the case may be. But at the same time, we could address this as a team, and not only that, get you the resources, get you inpatient, get you the help. So that way those thoughts could come out of you or whatever to try to get it out of you, because we want you to stay alive.
No, I think that would be an excellent thing, man. I think that would be an excellent addition to our armies.
Yeah, because it's about, because when you have a machine, there's so many different components to run that machine.
Exactly.
It's not just start it in full throttle and and off you go, because you're right, not all of them survive it. So it's like, how or what do we do? And I think having these discussions are important. Having these discussions with our political parties to be able to understand, and having ways to be able to communicate and to help one another. Because as we help others, and this moves on down the road and into the other generations, because let's face it, after Vietnam, it's kind of gone downhill. The way the veterans are responded to, it's different than that of the world wars.
Yeah, we are short of
and it's
soldiers right now. We're short.
But you need these politicians to step in and help too, because people don't understand. They ask you for donations, but these politicians sit up there sitting on all this money, and they don't tribute to nothing. They don't help these veterans worth nothing. Then when you ask them to help veterans, well, we're going to try to set up a program for them. We're going to try to do this for them. And they don't even doing nothing for these veterans. They really don't. But let them run for office and stuff. We're going to help the veterans. They don't even come out and say, "You coming home? We got something set up for you. We're going to help you." They don't even do that.
And here's another thing about to take another step further. You got all these nonprofits out here that actually do out there boots on the ground doing the mission, but they're not getting the resources they need. It's like they have to fight for funding. So here is what you probably got some knowledge in grants. If I have to write a 30-page grant and explain what I'm going to do, then I got to wait and see how the funds, or if I'm getting approved for the grant, that time spent could have been helping a veteran or person in the community. So I think we have to hold our leadership accountable and say, hey, look, get the money directly to these agencies and then hold them accountable. So if something goes wrong, their mission is supposed to prevent suicidal. You get funded for this. Why are we getting people committing suicide? Explain it. Hold them accountable. But they can't be held accountable because they can't get the resources to help them. And you got people with the experience wanting to help them, but they fighting for funding.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, wait, don't commit suicide. We're still working with the bureaucracy.
Exactly.
We have all the red tape over here. Oh, wait. But it's important to have these thoughts because
God bless you.
We have too many of the folks where they're saying, oh, don't have those thoughts. Everything's going to be okay. That's a bunch of BS. If you're having the thoughts, talk about it. Because let's face it, when the one thing that I've seen in my time in the advocate when talking about the suicidal groups, what we really want to address is somebody's got to find that body.
Yes.
Do you want to put somebody through that? If that's the only thing that's going to stop them from committing that, it's not just a religious thing. You got to get to the person on that level to find out find out what they're thinking.
Yeah.
I'm not saying let's entertain it till it happens, but let's bring it out so we can actually talk about it.
Let's stop it before it happens.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and if it's right there where people are at the point, then like you said, let's talk about it. Let's find out what we can do to be able to help one another.
But the best thing to do, have it set up for when they come out, give them the resource to go talk to somebody, one-on-one or counseling stuff, instead of bringing them home and putting them out there and they don't know nothing. That's going to hurt them a whole lot.
Yeah,
that's what they should do when they getting out, coming home. Make sure they can connect with everybody else. Not just come home, well, I'm a veteran, I need a job. No, we can't hire you and stuff. That's not right.
Yeah, like a 2-year program or something to be able to acclimate. Because, again, you're taking a child, you're throwing him into a war zone. Most of us that have never been in that war zone don't understand that, and what they have to live with. Go ahead.
Not to mention, a lot of these veterans are underemployed. I mean, we keep on saying, like the veteran, let's give them a job, but is the job even worth for the veteran work if they're being underemployed?
Yes.
I mean, they're making like maybe 29, 30, like under the poverty line.
Yeah.
So they're struggling. And then there's plenty of veterans I've seen over the years who can barely make rent, barely pay a bill. And they're like one paycheck away from being evicted from their apartment. One paycheck away from being like their lights being turned off. And they're begging for resources, begging like for actual employment out here. And they're being turned away by all these resources, supposedly from other agencies that's supposed to be out here to help them, and told that they don't qualify. And then they have nowhere else to go.
And let's take a little step further, because Fred, you was on the phone with me while I'm helping a veteran right now. I hope so. The congressman, I sent an email to Senator Dick Durbin. This veteran about to be homeless tomorrow. And the bad part about it is they said, since his time is in the National Guard, he's not considered a veteran because he falls under the state realm. Okay, but is he eligible for state benefits? Yes. But here's the problem. The state benefits is dried up because of the migrants.
Yeah.
So now we're in a catch-22 situation. We finna have and this gentleman has suffered strokes. So now he's not considered a veteran by the VA because he didn't serve no active time, but he served guard time, but he's not considered. He's like in that catch-22 situation, which I'm still trying to figure this out. Maybe you could help me because you was an administrator about the difference with the guard and the active.
Yeah, so I looked over the paperwork for this veteran, for this serviceman. He served 3 years in the National Guard, never deployed anywhere, never went anywhere around the 80s. And due to that, VA doesn't consider him being a veteran because he served not even 1 day on active service. And yeah, he's in a catch-22 there. Where, yeah, he qualifies for state benefits and all that, but he doesn't qualify for any VA benefits, which, a lot of these veterans, or should I say service members, fall into that category, which needs to be rectified through Congress.
Right. Sounds like the rules the lines need to be clear. The
Yes.
lines
Yes,
are
all
too
of them.
blurred.
All of them, too.
Instead
It's
of
not
them,
just some.
all of them.
All of
Yeah,
them.
yeah. Because
Yeah.
what happened is they were blurred. By them being blurred,
Mhm.
it allowed the politicians really to get away with a lot of stuff.
Yes.
And now they get to kind of pick and choose what they get to determine where your life leads by what they feel, if they can't see a disability or they can't
Yeah.
see it, they don't really care what happens.
Right.
And now,
Exactly.
yeah, how many how many homeless, and that's the other thing, the politicians in the media, they really blame a lot of the homeless because what they try to say is, oh, they're all alcoholics and drug addicts. It's not that way. It's because of age, income, or health, PTSD, whatever it may be. But when you see a veteran out there and you're just adding to the problems, it's making things worse.
I don't understand it though. How can you sit here, have veterans that done served already, and then you got all these migrants here, they flipping money on like it ain't nothing. They just throwing money away on these migrants. But when the veteran walk up, say, I need help, well, we don't have no money. We don't have money. But they started coming up with money to help these veterans.
Yep, and that's what Homer and I were talking about earlier. It's not that they don't have the money; it's the distribution of funds. What they're doing is they're using these migrants as a distraction. The politicians have used so many distractions, in just the last several years to be able to get away. It's not that the funds are not there; they're just choosing not to be able to help them. That's really what comes down to.
They just choose to throw money away and just to do what they want to and stuff.
Yep.
The money's there. They gonna do what they want to do unless you come at them.
But here's a good thing about that. The money is there, but look at those communities like DePage and them. I bet you if they drop those migrants like Hinsdale in your area, they dropped all those migrants. They hurry up and had a meeting and got them on that train and sent them to Chicago. They're like, you're not finna touch our resources because guess what? See your constituents that's very educated and well knowledge. They say, look, you better address this problem or you're going to be out.
Yeah.
The problem going to be resolved. Guess what? You saw how quick that meeting came and they was gone. The same way with Elgin. Here, what the hell is going on up here?
Yep.
Kankakee, Aurora.
Yeah.
Nobody
All
cares.
And
of
see, the problem is they have the resources, but it shouldn't just be for the selected areas. There should be a pool to be able just taking a problem and putting a problem here and then moving it there. You're not solving any problem,
The whole
I mean,
conglomerate
They need to do
Yeah.
something with
needs
these
someone
politicians
sober.
today.
But here's the thing right now. They fighting in D.C. While I was watching on CNN. Nikki Haley talk about once she gets in office, she's going to actually stop federal funding for sanctuary cities like Chicago, New York, Denver, and there was another one. Because she said that's unfair to the taxpayers and they can't get services, which is true. Because think about it, you got your seniors, people with disabilities and stuff not getting the help. We could say it's unfair all day, but keep in mind we put these idiots in office.
Yep.
And we need to hold them accountable. Here's the thing. Let's have a town hall meeting. The only person I know in this district who holds a town hall meeting is Chris Welch. He holds it here and there every quarter. At least, I see him doing something, holding a town hall meeting. We can ask questions and, go from there. But I never saw Danny Davis in this area. What, Bobby Rush or what's his name? Jesse Jackson Jr. or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan Jackson. I don't see them say, hey, let's have a town hall meeting. Let's have this going on. I not see one of them yet. And to me, it's sad, not only as a black veteran and a black disabled veteran of America, we got politicians that's black and they always love to use the race card. But at the end of the day, no offense, other minorities say, hold it. You can't use that excuse no more. You have a black president. Now you got a vice president that's multi-diverse culture. So what's your excuse now?
right. And let's face it, people are going to say whatever they can to run for that, the presidential title. But let's face it, it's the senators in Congress.
Exactly.
The senators in Congress really run this country.
Exactly.
The president could say whatever they want. And when they get in the office, if the senators in Congress do not agree with them, or like with Obama or some of the other ones,
Mhm.
if they like them or don't like them, they're going to make everybody's job easy. But the problem is we have to really focus on the senators in Congress. There is no transparency. There's no transparency where our taxes go.
Exactly.
There's no transparency for what these people, when you go to church and you kiss the babies and you show up on church for election, and that's really the only time you're out there.
Yeah.
None of that really matters. It's like that's where the problem is.
What you need to do to the politician, need to hang all of them and get rid of them.
Anyway,
moving on to the next
you don't have to
question.
raise your hand.
Next question.
Next question. It says, what employers are really the friendliest as far as for veterans? What would you? Because we see post office, that's usually a big one. But what are some of the
that's
the
federal.
friendlier veteran organizations?
Well, I would say state, but from my experience with the state of Illinois, that I can't say that. But you know what? And that's the thing. We have to canvass and find out, do further research of what employers is friendlier for veterans and disabled veterans at the matter of that. But right now, if you ask me, I'm like my battle saying federal.
Yeah.
I would say federal, but even with the federal, there's so many like hoops you have to jump through just to even get a federal job.
Yeah.
I mean, Obama, he actually did take and lower some of the standards of the paperwork required, because before there was this like ridiculous process of the federal resume you had to create,
Right.
which he downgraded and made it slightly easier. But it's still a whole bunch of hurdles you got to get through just to even like get a job in the federal government.
Yeah. And see, that's the other thing is they're in such a hurry to recruit as many kids from high school, but they're not willing to be able to position them in a way for jobs or what they need to do. It's like, okay, it's great. You're going to do the recruitment. You're going to do all of this. But what happens? That's why when people come to me and they say, the kids are saying, hey, we're thinking of joining the military because of our parents or our family or whatever. I always tell them, talk to the veterans that have been on the front line. Talk to the veterans that are home. Talk to them and find out, is this where? Do you have the means to be able to have a strong support system when you get home? And to be able to move forward, because that's one of the biggest problems.
And that's what they need too.
Yeah.
And here's another thing too for the young generation. The necessary that military that could be the last option on the table, but there's other opportunities. Okay, people say go to college, but don't discredit the trade schools too, because if you look at it right now, I'm gonna tell you from experience, I made more money before I had a college degree. So
yeah,
and I hold a master's. So people pushing this notion of, oh, you got to get this degree. That's not true, because believe it or not, most of your entrepreneurs was blue collar workers.
Yep.
So push those trades. We need carpenter, we need plumbers, we need people in the construction industry. We need all different types of elements. That's why I'm a big fan of not only trade, but entrepreneurship too, and financial literacy, because we have to teach this generation. They lack it on financial literacy, because if everybody keep talking about, like on the news, CNN, I always watch them because it's hilarious to me. They always,
too.
yeah.
I laugh at them all the time.
They talk about, they talk about, the college education is so far-fetched, or people coming out with debt. Number one, you didn't educate them about financial management. So when you graduate from college, I'm graduating to go back home to my parents. That's the wrong answer. And I'm graduating with student loan debt that costs more than a house.
Yeah.
And I could say, oh, the hell with this. I'll graduate high school with no debt. I can work and get my own mortgage. That's the American dream right there.
Yeah.
But, fortunately for me, I learned financial literacy early in life. And plus, I had a great educator in high school. He was in Wall Street. He knew all the ins and outs, but he taught us about financial literacy at a young age. So he said, hey, why go to college and take off loans, make Uncle Sam pay for it? Here's another thing. Why get a loan for the home, find a foreclosed property? I said, damn, this guy, he got everybody, keep in mind, inner city youth. If you grab that attention, he broke it down. I remember one student in the classroom, this is back in 1998. At Stuyvesant High School. He said, you know how much those Air Jordans cost, right? He said, oh yeah, 200 such and such dollars. He said, how much do you think they make in China? How much it costs to make in China?
Probably $2.
There you go.
Mhm.
About $2 or $3.
Everything goes over to China because it's cheap. And when they bring it to the United States jack up the price and stuff on everything.
And then
that's why they go overseas, because it's cheaper.
But let me finish this point. He and once the the student realized, he said, damn, he did some research and stuff. He took it back. He said, you know what? He got everybody's attention. But that knowledge right there carry a lot of people out through life. And we need people like those teachers to teach our inner city, and not only inner city, in the community too, because now when they talk about, the housing market is at a crisis, education debt is in a crisis. You caused the crisis by not educating the youth.
Mm-hmm.
What
we've given too much leadway to the government to stop governing and controlling, and to make all the rest of us their little profit puppets, where they're really taking advantage of every angle of us. It's big. All right, so we're going to try to run through a few more questions. I think this is great, but I think this is going to be important. It says, why is there lower representation for disabled veterans?
Want to take that, or you want me to take it? Okay, the reason why it's low representation for disabled veterans is because, one, I go back to these organizations. They're not going out to these employers and say, hey, look, hire this veteran and this is a credit, blah, blah, blah. Or here, I understand this veteran has a disability, but if we could partner up to try to help get this veteran in to a job that fits his or her skill, and then deal with the barriers and see what reasonable accommodations and other resources that way won't affect your company, then that'd be a success story. But I'm not seeing that, because if you go up the Broadview right now, you got all these factories. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to do a canvas research to say, hey, how many veterans you have, or disabled veterans at that matter? If you don't get no good response, you already know the answer.
Yeah, if they don't know it right at the top of the
exactly. Yep. And HR should have those stacks. HR, personnel.
Yeah, because it's important to be able to know, instead of like we were saying with the migrants that are coming in, we need to know how many, where, and who. We need to know that with the veteran. We need to know not only that with the veteran, we need to know that with the disabled veterans.
I would say
come first.
I will say this right now. In nationwide right now, in the whole United States, there is a construction worker shortage. These are not low-paying jobs anymore, people. These are high-paying jobs. They're paying over $100,000 a year now to $200,000 a year now for these jobs working construction. If you're not going to take these jobs, these migrants are going to take these high-paying jobs.
You're right.
The tradesmen who are doing these jobs are retiring, and they're retiring very quickly. And since they're retiring, that skill and that knowledge that they have is going to waste. And right now, I'll tell you, a lot of these buildings being put up are being put up with a lot of these skills not there. Case in point, my building, which was just built maybe 4 to 5 years ago, the plumbing is messed up because the person who was in charge of plumbing was not trained. And a lot more of these buildings are going to keep going up with a whole lot of issues because, again, those skills are being taken out the market, and the newer people coming in without being trained properly are going to keep making mistakes. So the jobs, these blue-collar jobs that you keep on thinking are low skill, low pay, those are the jobs right now that are paying the most. And a lot of these veterans out here need to start looking at these jobs before they're taken up. I mean, right now, the Army and the Air Force are trying to keep these pilots in those seats because the airline industry worldwide is a pilot shortage globally. So if you're looking to be a pilot right now, $200,000 is the starting pay globally.
And that's not just where we're talking. We're talking private airline pilots. It's the problem, I feel like, also, is the government really pushes education. Don't get me wrong, education is important, but there's nothing wrong with hard working. Because when you look at a trade school, there's times where you walk away where you get your education is on the ground. You get it from being able to work with people.
Yeah.
You know, so real quick, we're going to just do a real plug in. Again, we're here talking about the Veterans Employment and Day Labor Services. Homer, give them your website again. So as we're moving forward, if they need to get in contact, you know, they have that information.
Okay.
So
I'm going to give you the nonprofit, AmericanCares2.ning.com, and Lee, give the website for a veteran case management service.
www.veterancaseservices.com.
Great. So we're going to try to run through some because we got quite a few. I think this has been a great podcast, but I think we're going to try to get through a few of these other questions, you know, just as quickly as we can to be able to sum this up and possibly come back together to do another one, you know, as we get more questions.
Yeah.
Because we want to be able to know it's not just what people have called in, but what else can we focus on? How else can we really focus? You know, we can't help somebody unless they tell us what they need help with.
Correct.
And, you know, we can only ask so many questions, but if everybody's going, again, it goes back to too many people are dependent on the government, expecting the government.
Yeah.
So you see what happens when when you want the government to take care of you, you know, their shortage isn't in their pocket. Their shortage is on us. So how do we take this back? That's what a trade does. A trade gives us the ability to have skin in the game and to get out there. It doesn't work out easy. When it comes to the military, when it comes to college, they push it like that's going to be the ends, the means to the end, and it's all going to be great. That's not it. A lot of times, it's putting yourself mentally in debt and financially in debt. It's like what do we do when we do move forward to be able to move forward with it? So let's see, what do we have here? It says, why do Black veterans with disabilities face even more challenges due to the structural and systematic racism in the American labor force?
I think that question just answers itself
Yep.
in a nutshell.
Just running through, making sure we cover our bases.
Okay. Well, you got to look at it. If you Black and you disabled, you already be a stereotype as a person with not only a disability, you probably might have problems with reading, math, or comprehension skills. Then two, they overlooking that you serve and put your life on the line. You wrote a check to the government and say, hey, I'm willing to serve this country, take care of me. And then from there, you got to look at the racism. Even when I was on active duty, I was a commissioned officer, and I've experienced racism being in Minnesota. So I can tell you experience racism still exists in today's country, and it's still a problem. And we have to sit down and have these conversations to address the ignorance. Because once you do that, you'll make the world a better place. But with the disabled veteran job market, it's going to continue to be a problem. That's why I'm working with the U.S. Department of Labor so we could try to find funding to address not only the Black veterans, but disabled veterans in general with resources and get them on the job and whole entrepreneurship training. And not only that, people who looking for skills, not only going to college, like my buddy Lee just said over there, those skills that's people retiring, bring them back on and teach them. Because believe it or not, them skills back in the 70s and 80s, those people was taught the real deal.
Yeah,
so you want to keep them people around to teach the new generation.
Or turn them into teachers.
Yeah.
Turn them into instructors.
Not only that, when you was young, your father used to take you to work with him and show you what he do for a living.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing about a trade, now understand a job and education, that can go away. When you have a trade, you have
That's
a
for
demand.
life.
It's for life.
Can't nobody take that away from you.
Yep.
That's a skill.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, how do you get your own skills? How do you bring in your own education? You know, instead of expecting somebody else, you know, we got, you know, sure, there's racism. And I'm not saying by any means that anybody should ignore it or really stand down to it. But you've got to have it's about survival now. That's what
exactly.
We can't stop just because, somebody's picked on me because I'm short, or somebody's picked on you because you're Black. That's not where it stops. It's got to stop where we're not going to tolerate that. But at the same time, we're not going to just stop. We keep moving forward. Yeah. And how do we do this so we change this so that the generations ahead are not just sitting there feeling like they're entitled and they just get to sit there until the problems are solved. Problems are always going to be here. It's how do we move forward? We just
have to push that education, man. We have to educate every side.
Yeah.
Not just this side or that side. Every side.
And if somebody is saying or doing something, why are they saying that?
Exactly.
And understanding the problem is people are afraid to have these conversations now because it's going to spark something. who cares? So we're
Mhm.
going to spark something.
Yeah.
Some things are going to explode along the way. That's perfectly fine. But let's have the conversation. Let's talk more about what does it mean to have PTSD. I don't mean anybody's personal PTSD, but it's being able to understand what's going on within somebody. Just because you can't see somebody with a missing limb doesn't mean that there's not something going on.
Yes.
And
We're fighting against the entire generation's worth of go to college, get the high paying job in the corporate office, get the corner office, get the degree. We're fighting against that mentality that's been given to us for the past 20 to 30 years. And then don't get that low paying job in that trade school. And now you have an entire generation that's grown up with that mentality, and the entire industry has flipped over on its head, where that high paying job that used to be there in that corner office is no longer the high paying job, because those jobs that no longer exist, they're already gone. And that low skill job that used to be there is now the high paying job, because there's so few people in it. It's became the high paying job. But now when it comes to these veterans, just going back to the veteran community, we've served in the service where we had those back-breaking jobs in the service. We have injuries. We have all types of back problems, muscle spasms, neck injuries, leg injuries. We can't do those back-breaking jobs because we've already done it. So while we would love to take, like I said, I love to do a construction job, I physically can't do it.
Right.
I love to do carpentry, electrical engineering, construction overall. But again, those jobs for veterans, certain veterans can't do them.
Yeah. Yeah. And you got to find out what fits. Again, just don't put it on to somebody. Get out there and try it.
Yeah.
You know, sure, college is always going to have a place. There's going to be certain parts of it. If you're going to be a brain surgeon, you don't want just somebody, you know, off the street doing that. But, you know, if in the meantime, but you have to understand people that are doing that are also usually lined from where their family is, from what's going on. But let's face it, it's about survival. You know, I remember in my day when you couldn't pay your bills and 40 hours didn't cut it, well, you picked up 80. If 80 didn't pick it up, you keep pushing yourself to the limit.
Yeah.
And it's about survival, and that's what we're saying. So anyway, we're just at about time. We're going to wrap up here. Gentlemen, I want to say thank you for all of your time here. We will come together. We'll do another podcast in the future.
Yes,
I want
we
to
have
thank IntellectualRadio.com for their time and for
Thank
their
you.
help
Thank
and
you.
the short notice.
Yes.
And to say thank you so much, and we'll look forward to getting back together. Michelle, thank you as well. And we'll look
Thank
forward
you.
to talking to everybody soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And bless everybody in it.